Hey guys, so on this week's episode of Make It with Calvin, I'm going to be showing you guys how I set up my Simplify 3D profile for my Geeetech A10M. So let's dive into it. So first things first, obviously the profile has been set up for two extruders, and the settings for both nozzles are the same, so I'll just show you them here. This is a combination of stuff I figured out through experimentation and things that people posted, but this is what works best for me. 0.4 nozzle diameter, extrusion multiplier of 1, so it extrudes a 0.4, and the width of 0.4 as well. A retraction distance of 5 millimeters at 40 millimeters a second works good. I found doing vertical lift wasn't really necessary, so no point in that. There is a 0.2 millimeter coast and a 0.5 millimeter wipe. You could always adjust the wipe distance a little bit if you wanted to, but I found in general that worked pretty good, so I'm not messing with what works. Under the layers side, I just use the same settings that Chuck does, with the magic numbers of being 0.04 millimeters a layer. So in this case, I'm running 0.2. I find that just works as a good happy in between. The way I have it set up is my first layer height is 150% of the first layer initial height, just to be safe, and a 50% speed. Obviously, your bed leveling may be slightly different, so do as works for you. I just like to choose a starting point closest to there. I find it works a little better, but as always, to each their own. Under the Additions tab, I don't use a brim, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Infill is just 10% with typical square, nothing fancy. Support, nothing too fancy. I did find though that 30% with a one layer vertical separation tends to work pretty good, depends upon the material. Do note that like clear PLA tends to need more standoff distance, and colored not so much. Not fully sure why, but just a quirk of the thing. Heated bed is set to 60. I tell it to wait for the temperature controller to stabilize before beginning the build. That means that it will wait until the heated bed hits the temperature and then goes from there. Pretty important. For the extruder, I like to run my first layer hot at 220. I find this just works the best. Lets the filament flow a little better. Seems to stick really good. Then I ramp it down by 10 degrees till I hit 190, which seems to work really good with the AMZ 3D PLA and most others as well in the machine, so that works really good. Cooling is pretty simple. I don't like jumping straight up to 100% just so I don't freak out the machine along with the temperature dropping and cause any temp errors. So I like to go for the second layer 50%, third layer 100%, seems to work really good. Don't really worry about those because the settings are already set to 100. For the G code, the machine's build volume is 220 by 220 by 260, so I put that in there. I haven't programmed any offset from the side for it. That's not really necessary. I don't worry about setting the baud rate or anything like that. Doesn't really make much difference. Over here, I found that doing that one, and that one works good. Certain machines might react a little differently, but this is what works good on my machine. Now here's the fun part. Remember how I said I didn't use a purge skirt? Here's why. Beginning of the print, it homes the machine, it brings the extruder to the front, then it zeroes the extruded length, which means that it's now going to read that as 0, so it clears whatever previous number was there. It goes to 10 millimeters away from the bed. It purges slowly and quickly and slowly, my bad. It zeroes the length again, pulls the filament away, does 2 wipe moves, and then it just zeroes the extruder out. Now, this comes in handy because you'll see in the video, pulls to the front of the bed and does the purge. Don't have to worry about anything with that. I don't do any layer change, retractions, or tool change scripts. And then for the ending script, it's pretty simple. It just turns off the extruder, turns off the bed, raises the head, turns the fan off, homes the x-axis, should pull the Y to the front, and then it disables the motor. So it's a pretty simple ending script, and feel free to modify it as you see fit. Speeds are pretty simple. I tend to run around 45 to 60 millimeters a second, and I always make the outline 25% slower than the everything else. I just find it looks a little better. Do note that your maximum rapid speed according to Geeetech on the machine is 70 millimeters a second, but to play it safe I set it to 60, and I find a z-axis movement speed as 15 works. And this right here is probably the most critical setting if you're doing prints with tiny posts, like the parts that you'll see in the time lapse. Adjust printing speed for layers below 15 millimeters a second down to 25% of the speed. This will add to your runtime, but it really, really makes a difference. Trust me, there's no way I could pull off the little dice prisons that I'm doing if I didn't have that set in there. Huge difference. So under the other area, nothing too critical. You just tell it your filament diameter. I don't worry about price or density or anything like that. There's the bridging settings. I just kept those where they were at. I did tell it to bridge at a slower speed so you get better cooling. Predominantly I'm not doing actual bridging, but it will see an edge on the inside of a part as a bridge and slow it down for cooling. It does help. Nothing too much here, just for the thin walls. I do say perimeters, single extrusion, 30% overlap. Nothing too fancy there, and that is my settings. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about with the cool head slowing real quick. Okay, so this model isn't perfect, but we'll just use it for the demonstration. What you'll see is in this upper area, Simplify 3D is actually going to slow it down because it's going to see that as a bridge. So let's jump in here. I've got it set to movement speed. So the darker the blue, the slower the color, the lighter-ish the green, the faster the speed. So you'll notice at the top here of the dice, it starts to slow down more as you're nearing the top. Obviously, so you get better cooling. But this is what I was talking about on the inside, where if you use that because of the angle as a bridge, and it slows it down, and it definitely makes a difference. And then when it nears the top, it doesn't really see the need to slow down as much. But also for the bridging where the magnets go, it does a slow down there as well, and it does help. So I hope that helps you guys figure out how to set up your Simplify 3D profile. I do also have the link to the Dropbox page where you can just download it and go from there. And this should work for an A10 as well. You just need to go in there and tell it that it is a single extruder machine, not a dual. That's all you need to do. Have a good one.